Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 7th and 8th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Gelber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday night as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Shiny.
Oh, we're live? Oh, sorry. I was looking at my very shiny copy here of Silverline Team Up number 2, which you can get if you go pledge to the campaign, which, by the way, I'm happy to report. Let me share it here. Has funded. You see, we have hit our goal. We are 108% of the goal. I can't do math, but I know that's good. Anything over 100 is good, right? So thank you to all the backers thus far. We are concocting some stretch goals right now, and I know the first one we're talking about coming up with is a package of digital independent comics. So keep spreading the word, and hopefully we can find some digital independent creators to share with you, maybe that you haven't heard of. These are not just going to be Silverline titles, by the way, because someone asked me that. Are you just going to give me Silverline titles? No. We're not going to do that. I'm reaching out to other comic book makers to see if we can't get some. What was the question, Tommy?
What was the stretch goal number for the first stretch goal?
1250. We can get 1250. The idea is I want to try to get 12 different independent comics in honor of 1250, 12 independent comics. I'm still working on that. I think I have 6 pledged right now, and I'll try to make that announcement tonight. But I'm going to try to get a few more. I'm thinking maybe might have something that he can contribute, but I haven't asked him yet. So, but yeah. So you guys keep spreading the word, keep sharing. I probably shouldn't say this
No, I won't say this loud. I offered up bribes at the show yesterday for pledges. So, and it worked for a couple. So I'm excited about that. So speaking of which, con report. I went to Brick City Comic Con yesterday. It was just a one-day show, and in Ocala, Florida. It was a fun little show, a little one-day show. I met a couple of creators that I had never met before. One was a fellow by the name of Todd Kelly, and has some nice looking stuff. And then the other was Tony Petrie. Tony was doing his first ever comic convention. He had just had his first book done fairly recently. I don't remember exactly when he said. Where's my stash? I meant to show my stash of. Shoot. I left my stash somewhere else. But it was his first ever comic book, and it was his first ever Comic Con. So that was kind of exciting to get to talk with him. He said nice things about me, and that helped me like him. But
that always works for me. So
yeah, well, you know the thing, he called me a legend. I said, yeah, in my own mind, maybe. And I think he tried to figure out if it was actually me or not. He's like, I think that's the guy
there's too many Rollins.
Well, you know, that was kind of my question. It's like, well, there aren't a whole lot of Roland Mans working in the industry. I don't think.
Yeah, I've traveled around the world. I've met one Roland.
Well, Tommy and I both know another Roland who
really
who does
there's a
work
second
in
one?
comics.
Yeah.
Yep. Guy by the name of Roland Paris, who is a pretty good inker. I don't remember who all he worked with, but he did like the first issue of Silverstorm with us.
Yep.
Okay.
Way back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pop says, I got my stash. I will share. Pops, I think, went to oh, yeah. That wouldn't be I was thinking a stash of comics.
Oh.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
you think that's what he was talking about?
Yeah,
Pops.
I'm sure that's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, lots of folks came out. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, got to see. Did you guys see the paintings that I posted on
I did.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was pretty cool. The way that happened is a guy reached out to me probably 6 weeks ago or something like that. I guess when they made the announcement, he reached out to me and said, hey, you know, of course, it was kind of funny because I had no idea what he's talking about. And he goes, hey, can I do your characters for the show? And I'm like, what you talking about, Willis? What you mean? You know, I don't know what that means. And then he says, oh, I'm sorry. Here's a link to my work. He goes, I would like to paint some of your characters for the show. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course, man. That sounds cool. Go to it. And then when I got there, he had these two pretty awesome paintings, one of Cat and Mouse and one of Trump's. And it was very, very cool. I told him, I said, look, man, see, if you still have these at the end of the day, see me. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to sell them to people walking by. They came home with me. So,
Unfortunately.
huh?
So you know, stretch goals.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Get those
I
made
wonder
into
what
prints
he
or
would.
something.
Yeah, I wonder if he wouldn't. I wonder if he'd care. I don't know. I'd have
Yeah,
to reach out to him. Yeah. Anyway, it was very cool. I don't think I'd ever seen anyone do anything like that before. Anything that I had worked on, and so it was pretty neat. Pop says I've got both. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my con report. Anybody else do Pete, didn't you just recently do a show?
He did one.
That wasn't last weekend, though, was
I
it?
did Portsmouth Comic Con the weekend before last.
Weekend before that, okay.
Oh, was it last weekend? That was it last weekend?
Well,
Yeah.
given the time
Yeah,
difference,
last weekend.
it's probably this weekend where we are.
Yeah.
No, last weekend. That's right. That's why I was on the show.
Well, give us a con report.
Oh, I don't know. I'd say it's a very good show. I always do very well. I'm all out of books now. All out of team up books, put it that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best shows I do, actually.
Wow. Now, how far really is good. That? How far is that from you?
It is in my town now, as we've moved to Portsmouth.
That's right. Oh, you moved down there just for the convention, didn't you?
Yeah. So it's the third time I've done the show. It gets better every year. They have a good turnout. They get a few big name or bigger names over or in. But otherwise,
over from the States.
Yeah, sometimes they have people flown in. Esad Ribbich was last year. I think they had this year. I'm not sure. I didn't get away from my table all weekend. I got 20 minutes. I got 20 minutes at the end on Sunday. I can get up and walk around.
That's frustrating, but that's a good sign, right?
It's a good sign, yeah.
Yeah. It is frustrating because you want to pal around with the people who are there. You want to meet people. When you don't have the time to get up, that's a really good sign.
Aside from the regular Doctor Who people, it's a comic show, really. It's about comics, and so that's always a bonus.
So because you couldn't get up, you weren't able to really meet any of our colleagues in the comics, huh?
No, I didn't. No, unfortunately not. No, it was a good show in that aspect, but I was so busy. I didn't get up. I got up at 4:30 on Saturday and then 4:00 on Sunday. So I was busy throughout. And I've still got stuff I've got to finish, so I had to take home stuff.
Those are like farmers' hours.
I know, right?
Those are not artist hours. That's
that sounds good.
Good show.
Yeah, sounds exciting.
And they're already selling tickets for next year already.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great. You already got your spot for next year?
I've got my spot for next year, yeah.
There you go.
I made friends with the guy that invites the guests, i.e. the ones that don't.
Very important.
Because I'm going to have my passport. Did you get me a spot?
I'm hoping. Well, if you're not invited, I can't help you out. I'll see what I can do. I'm trying to get myself invited first.
That's what I'm hearing.
That's right.
I'm trying to get myself invited.
Well, all right then. So that's it for the news, I reckon. I was thinking I had something else, but I guess that's it. Were we talking about the orchestra thing before we went live?
Yes.
Okay. So
you haven't said anything about it on air yet.
In a bit of interesting news, the Orlando. I wish I gotta pull it up. The Orlando Orchestra people.
You don't even know what they call it.
I hope they're not listening.
Those people that play violin.
They've been incredibly nice, right? The Orlando Contemporary Chamber Orchestra is having a performance this Saturday, June the 1st. It starts at 7 p.m. The Harriet's Orlando Ballet Center will host Heroes and Villains, a comic concert. And the exciting thing about all of this is they're going to be featuring images from Silverline Comics. Way too long of a story to go into how it happened here live, but the point is they reached out to me, and I will be there with a bunch of Silverline Comics, hoping people go in and listen to a whole bunch of orchestral stuff. I have to figure out how to say that word. Orchestral stuff, right? Heroes and Villains, and see images from Silverline Comic. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they just said they're going to, have a slideshow while the music is playing. And I think they said it's going to take about an hour and a half. There's a brief intermission in the middle, but they'll be casting images from Silverline Comics, and then my hope is that when they're done, they'll all come out and go, "Cool, I want some Silverline Comics." Very interesting. I'll have to say, in the 30 some odd years that that I've worked in comics, I've never ever set up at an orchestra before. So I am very much looking forward to this. BJ's already trying to convince me to wear a tie, and I'm like, I'm not gonna wear a tie. I'm a comic book guy. And she goes, no, but it's an orchestra thing. And she goes, it's a symphony. I'm like, but I'm a
It's
comic
in
book
Orlando.
guy.
Nobody
You
wears
can never go wrong getting dressed up, though, dude. You
So,
want to be taken seriously as an artist.
Do you even own a tie? Do you even
I
own
do
a
own a
button-down
tie.
shirt? I don't ever think I've
Yeah,
seen you.
but
in
it's
a
got
button-down.
Spider-Man on it.
I do own a couple button-up shirts and a tie. Matter of fact, it looks like Tom. Speaking of which, it looks like Tom is in a t-shirt.
Oh, yes.
I am. Well, I got to try to fit in with you guys. So I want to,
That's right.
We're bad
I-
influences on it.
I'm
I
not
have a
sure I've
shoe to
ever
collar
seen that
shirt
before.
tonight. And I'm and not only a t-shirt, but black t-shirt. So it's me and Mike and Peter and Roland. We're all
Yeah,
in the same
right.
club
So-
now.
Tom is in a
I'll
white
go
t-shirt.
change my shirt real quick.
But I don't have any. There's nothing printed on mine.
Just a solid black.
The solid black.
That's your I gotta go rob a store shirt, huh?
That's right. I gotta hit up. I gotta make a withdrawal at 7-Eleven.
Yeah. All right. Well, tonight's topic is the importance of place. We're going to talk about why does place matter, kind of in stories, but in comics. I know part of what this was inspired by when I got kicked off the air. Was it last week? I guess it was, or 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
2 weeks ago. I heard you guys talking about New Orleans a little bit, and kind of a bunch of my stories are set there. So kind of inspired me. But so the first thing we'll go to Mike first. He's been a little quiet here at the beginning. Mike, where is the Man in the Mask set?
Actually, it's in two cities. The original Man in the Mask was I came up with a name, Freeborn City, and it's based on basically kind of a souped up coal camp, is what we call them in Kentucky. They were basically cities that were pretty much organized to cater to the miners.
Gotcha.
And that, usually the big company came in and they would put in stores and theaters and in some instances golf courses. I mean, they were very much there to keep their employees happy. And so that's what I based that city on. That it basically is a city that, as it grew up, alongside, criminal elements came in because it was attracted to it. And so I wanted kind of this old-fashioned place that would eventually kind of run down a little bit because, again, that's what happened to the coal camps. So,
yeah. Right. And this is the kind of place that Tennessee Ernie Ford sung about, right?
Probably, yeah. There's probably a lot of country songs and a lot of bluegrass songs, particularly about, growing up in those kind of areas. So that's where I kind of started the story at, and then of course the legacy character is in more of a bigger city, of a more metropolitan, more kind of upscale.
And that's Millerton, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so where geographically, where is Millerton?
I kind of keep them in the Appalachian area without saying Kentucky. But it's basically like any fictional city. It's where you think you want to kind of place them. Yeah. I mean, in my heart, they're in Kentucky, but probably I would have a hard time explaining cities like that in Kentucky. So, but in my heart, my own little mythos that they would be in Kentucky with that kind of like I said, a little more upscale, a little bit more metro touches to it. Like I said, that was the intention. I wanted them to be, DC fictional cities. I wanted them to have a little bit of, where I came from, and what things I've experienced.
Yeah. Now, why did you, out of curiosity, because I figured one of the things we might talk about a little bit about is kind of the DC versus Marvel thing is, DC is set in the fictional metropolis and Star City and Gotham, where Marvel just used New York City. Anybody know the real reasons behind that at all?
I think Stan knew New York. I mean,
Stan,
they didn't actually draw New York, but they knew New York.
why did DC opt to use fictional towns? Anybody know?
I'm not really sure about that.
I always thought it was because they wanted to basically make stuff up. I mean, maybe there's an actual real reason, but I thought because if you use New York, and a lot of people know New York City pretty well, then you get yelled at when your geography is wrong.
I was going to say maybe it's because which one came out first, so they weren't having superheroes in the same area. But a lot of the, Superman and all that stuff came out before the Spider-Man stuff. So
20 years.
The reason.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want the Marvel and DC characters all in New York. It's like, well, why don't they ever see each other if they're all in New York? So,
right. You would think Spider-Man would see Superman if they're all in the same town.
Yeah.
Hey, Superman, it's me, Spidey.
Yeah, what's up? Hey, we can't talk. We
call my lawyer.
It's my contract. Yeah.
But I think it gives DC a lot more license to sort of screw around with the geography.
Exactly.
Because you don't have to know where the Empire State Building is. You don't have to know where the Twin Towers were. You don't have to know the Chrysler Building. You can just make stuff up. Because I've read a million Superman comics and a million Batman comics, and I could never describe to you where things are in either city.
No.
I have no sense of that place. I mean, I know it's big, and whenever they need a huge building, it's there, but I couldn't tell you where it is.
So, let's talk. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it depends on how you approach it. I mean, you got with DC, and actually with DC and Marvel, you've got guys that the creators changing it out. So I mean, you have a fictional city. The new creative team doesn't have to remember this avenue or this neighborhood or this whatever. I mean, it's like Tom said, it's creative license. So I mean, I think it allows them to not have to be held to the iron on anything.
Yeah, and I think for me anyway, because I'm a location bigot, I guess, is that when you tell me that a story is set in New York, I'm gonna start looking for stuff.
Yeah,
I'm gonna start looking for. I got to see the Empire State. Like if you tell me a story is set in New Orleans, I'm gonna need to see Bourbon Street at some point, because that's why. Otherwise,
Superdome.
Yeah, because otherwise, why set it there? Well, if you're not going to take advantage of some of the visuals, why would you do that? So if someone is setting a story in New York, I'm going to need to see some stuff where I can go, oh yeah, that's Times Square. That's
I've been there. I know what that is. Yeah,
right. Yeah. Where if you tell me it's Star City or Central City or Metropolis or Gotham or whatever,
just big buildings,
right? Yeah. Just big, and because it feels like when you set a story in New York, like when Spider-Man is set in New York or the Fantastic Four is set in New York during those early issues, that felt like another character.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Metropolis never felt like a character in a Superman story. It's just like the place where Superman works when he's Clark Kent.
Yeah.
It's not, I never got a sense of it as a story element, whereas Gotham is definitely a story element. And New York is definitely a story element.
What do you think, Pete? You're itching to say something.
Yeah, I think you're right. Gotham is the only one that's really been fleshed out in that it's got that gothic. When you're drawing it, you've got to draw Gotham City. You can't just draw a city and call it Gotham. Whereas the others, it can be anything. I think Metropolis has got to be futuristic. That's all I could think of. Metropolis. It's a city of tomorrow, isn't it? Whereas Keystone City or Central City or wherever they are. Whatever, draw whatever you like. There's nothing there that I could say, yeah, I know what that is. Yeah, Gotham's the only one. It has to be Gotham. It doesn't look like anything else.
Yeah.
It's a character. It's as much a character in the story as Batman.
But I think Gotham sort of became Gotham later on. Like in the early Batman comics, it was just a regular looking city.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily the Gothic city. I think the Tim Burton movie sort of helped redefine everybody's version of the dark Gothic-y.
Yeah. Because I don't recall it as a kid being that dark and Gothic-y.
No. Batman would always ride. I mean, if you take the Batman TV show out of the equation and the regular Batman comics in the 60s and 70s, was just Batman would get in his Batmobile and he'd drive into town, and it'd be just like a city where somebody's dad worked or whatever. It was never the sort of crazy Gothic funhouse that it is now.
I'm trying to see when Gotham City of course, I say, when was Gotham City created? And the first thing that pops up is Alan Moore says it was created in 1635. I'm like, no.
Of course, because they stole it from the indigenous people for a handful of coins or something.
Well, after the Batman movie, the first Batman movie, they the guy who designed Burton's Gotham, Anton Furst, I know there for a little bit they were pretty much, they took some of his work and were putting it on covers, and they were putting that, they were having their artists draw a lot of that stuff inside Gotham to kind of give, and that's where I can remember it started to look more Gothic,
right?
Because that really was those kind of real angular, kind of more foreboding buildings in the background, and I guess that was their way of kind of syncing up that, that audience. If you see it in this movie, well, you can see here's the Batman. Because like I said, I can remember covers, and they were specifically saying, designed by Anton Furst. So,
and that's where you realize that Batman has had no positive effect on Gotham in any way. He hasn't stopped crime. He hasn't made the city any prettier. He hasn't done anything. If anything, Gotham has deteriorated over his long watch.
They should fire him.
Whereas Metropolis is still bright and shiny, and in the FF and Spidey, New York is still New York, and in West Coast Avengers, LA is still LA. There's not only Batman has ruined Gotham.
So Batman is really just a villain.
If you like good, if you want to live in a city with decent architecture to raise a family or whatever, Gotham is not your place.
He is a negative influence.
Yes.
So I'm going to kind of, well, before I do that, Pete, what about you? You have your own thing is called the
Damn Witchfinder.
The Damned Witchfinder, yeah. Where is it?
That's set in England. That's set in medieval England. So I can pretty much make up a town because it's medieval. But the names and the places, I tend to try and make sure they exist or existed. But the church buildings and things like that, I'll find reference for churchy buildings, medieval buildings. But yeah, I haven't had to draw somewhere like London yet. I'm probably going to steer away from doing that.
Yeah.
But if I did, I'd have to do loads of research and see what it actually looked like. Yeah, it's all set in real places.
Because if you tell me a story is set in medieval England, my brain automatically assumes certain parts of what I think that's going to look like.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, so the setting of that is important because I'm bringing my own.
That's right. Yeah, and it's meant. It's historical, so I can't just make up, because the moment you make up a place, it's not historical anymore. It's
right.
It's a fantasy thing, and all the history and stuff disappears.
You might as well have elves.
All the history of witchfinders and the trials and all that stuff doesn't apply anymore, because it's not, that happened in a certain place at a time, not just any way you like. I suppose you could make it any way you like, but it doesn't carry the same.
Yeah. Well, and part of it, right? Part of it is about the trust that you have with your reader, right? Is that when you build certain expectations in your reader, and then when you break that, then your reader's like, well, I don't trust you anymore. And good or bad, that kind of thing. But what happens is your reader doesn't trust you anymore as a storyteller. Yeah. And it's not that they go, well, I don't trust Roland as a storyteller. It's just it's one of these kind of in things that they pick up inherently in the story that says, okay, well, this is one thing that you kind of told me that I was to expect, and now you've done this. That's not, you didn't fulfill your promise, or you misled me, right? And I think that's one of the things you have to be really careful of as a storyteller is to not lie to your reader.
Well, and don't don't ruin what you've established.
Right.
I think though, for me, the worst episodes of any TV show for me are where the characters go on vacation, or like if it's a crime show set in New York City, or if it's a crime show set in Washington D.C., and suddenly they go, "Oh, we have to go and have an episode in Los Angeles now," and it's like, well, I don't really want that. I don't want to see you driving around in the palm trees fighting crime if you've been fighting crime in the gritty New York City.
Right, because that's why you're watching.
Yeah. I want to. I can watch an LA cop show. I want to watch a New York cop show.
Yeah.
So that sort of trust for me is sort of broken because I don't care about those episodes.
Right. Yeah. Tommy, what about Zomboy? You know I'm a big fan of Zomboy. Where's Zomboy set?
Well, it's funny. I was just thinking about it because I knew this was going on. So the actual elementary school that it doesn't take place in any place. It's just in an elementary school with the surrounding areas of that kind of thing. But actually, I would guess it if I was to picture a place, it'd be more like a just your easygoing rural city like Hattiesburg or wherever where we went to college. But the actual elementary school I named after the elementary school I went to in New Orleans. So Cahill Academy was the elementary school I went to. So I named it after that.
Yeah.
But so sort of it's kind of a New Orleans based comic too.
Yeah.
Not
there
really.
you go.
No, yeah. My location it's a elementary school where the kids are in school, basically.
Yeah.
So your typical so my location's not a city, it's a location.
And where they at most of the time they're always in the school, right?
They're either in the school, the playground, or maybe a park, where the kids can fight, that kind of thing. It's just it's not I don't need a big, downtown anywhere where you need to see skyscrapers and stuff like that, because that's not what the stories would ever be about.
Right. And they don't go explore the city, and they don't go into the you don't have those episodes, the stories where they need to go across town or anything like that.
No. They may go into the under depths of the school to go into the sewery kind of stuff under there, just because that's what.
But it's all from the school.
But it's all based off of things that you find at school.
And that's your setting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom, what about? And I honestly don't remember this. I should have peeked before. What about Dinosaurs for Hire?
I said it in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, okay. Yeah, that's right. I do remember that. Yeah.
And I said it
in background. You just walked outside, snap a picture, send it to Mitch or whoever was penciling it, and say, draw this.
Yeah, because what I like about it is Los Angeles is if you need it, there's the beach, there's the mountains, there's the sunshine, you can have the tall buildings, you can have Hollywood, you can have anything. And so I really like having all of those locations that you can move a story around to, because I unlike say you serious guys, I'm perfectly willing to violate my locations in order to set up my plot and make my jokes. I know. I don't because I'm not trying to establish a sort of continuity of place where somebody can go, in issue 2 they did this. It's like, yeah, okay, well now they're not, and so
Tom's hoping they say, do you remember that joke in issue 2?
That's right. Yeah. Did you like it? Did it make you laugh? Did you want to buy more issues?
Exactly.
I don't want what Pete is going to get, which is people combing over and going, well, this medieval castle doesn't look right. Or,
this doesn't look right.
Those bricks aren't laid right.
Right. If the way
they don't have that kind of stone in Scotland.
This is not classic Roman architecture from the invaders or whatever. It's like, I don't care about that stuff. And if you're paying that kind of attention to my work, then I'm a winner, because that's, I think if you're looking at my work and you're worried about how the building is constructed and that's your complaint, you're doing a deep dive into my work.
Yeah.
And that's I think you're nutty, but that's cool, because
yeah. So I'm going to latch on to something that Tom said few minutes ago, and we're gonna sit there for a minute. So, Tom said something about, I don't remember even what it was in reference to. Something about the city being a character, and I believe that. I believe that is the case, or should be the case in a lot of your stories. Is that the city, the place that your characters exist, should be important to the characters, meaning that for something like Cat and Mouse, right? Silverline Team Up, I shouldn't be able to take Cat and Mouse out of New Orleans and move them to, let's say, an Atlanta, Georgia, right? I'm going to stick to the South because that's what I know. Because it's Atlanta has a completely different city personality than New Orleans does. And this is one of the things I like about certain U.S. cities. Anyway, I don't know what the personality of London is other than what I see in movies and stuff like that. Excuse me, but New Orleans has its has a personality.
Yeah, there's things that happens in New Orleans that's not going to happen in the middle of Dallas or whatever. You're not going to be doing all this voodoo-y stuff, and all of a sudden you're next to the conservatory or wherever where JFK got shot. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't.
Right. And in the same regard, New Orleans is you're not going to, like New York City, Spider-Man can swing on these tall buildings for blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks. Yeah, New Orleans, you can do that for about 3 blocks.
He's got like a half a block, and then he's going to have to walk.
Also in New Orleans, you can't bury a body.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And that's different than other cities, because if you want to bury somebody, you got to put it up on the in the mausoleum or whatever above ground. You can't.
In New Orleans, you just bring them out into the swamp and let the gators get them.
You might have missed our conversation. We talked this sometime back. We talked about when Cat and Mouse was actually licensed to the trilogy,
right?
And do you remember? Do you remember much about that at all?
Well, I know that they wanted to put him in the sewer.
Yeah.
There's no New York type sewer system in New Orleans.
Well, of course there is.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a good chuckle out of that.
Pipe
in the
that
office.
runs through the dirt. That's the sewer
system.
Yeah. It's not an actual big. It's not a manhole cover. It's a pipe. It's a PVC pipe.
In settings like that, like when I know this is going back into old man territory, but when Kirby was doing the Newsboy Legion, and those stories were set in New York City, that New York City had an attitude that also informed the characters, as well as the location, because they had real New York attitude. If you looked at those characters, and even the background characters, and you would say, "Oh wait, that's New York," because that's New York of the 1930s or 1940s or whatever. And I think
it's good.
And I think with Mike's work, based on where he is set, Man in the Mask, that small town sort of company store attitude comes through from the characters. And that would be different if he said it in Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of my young I guess knowledge of New York City came from comic books, came from Spider-Man, came from, my expectations of New York City came from the comic books that I read. I expected everyone to honk and yell and, and when I went, they did.
When's the last time you've been there?
I've told you that it wasn't until I actually arrived in New York I could see all the water towers on top of the building. So I'd only ever seen those in comic books before, and then to get there, I was taking pictures. I always take pictures of them. I think
what are these?
It's the only place I'd seen them before, and then suddenly there they were. I was like, I've got to get pictures of them.
I thought Frank Miller was lying to me, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, there it is.
They're amazing. I think they're great.
Yeah. But and of course, to kind of address the question, why did Roland set Cat and Mouse in New Orleans? A lot of it was when I started to write. Writers, you're always taught write what you know. And while while that can be misinterpreted, I think people will twist it. Well, you're not an alien. How can you write about an alien? Well, that's not really what that means, right? But my thinking back then was that, you know what? I've never been to New York City. I can read about it. I can research about it, and I can probably tell stories, that are set there. But it's not what I want to do. I want to tell stories set in some place that I know a little bit better. And New Orleans was a place that I knew, so I'm like, well, why not? No one's set, to my knowledge, no comic books had ever been set in New Orleans before, right? So it's like, I get to do something that no one else has done. Yeah, they've been, New York, Chicago, West Coast Avengers, so they've been spread out. But no one had ever done anything, to my knowledge anyway. No one had ever done anything in New Orleans. So it's like, well,
New Orleans has got a really cool flavor to it. Yeah, it's really exciting kind of thing. Even though, if you actually look at it on a map, New Orleans is a tiny little area where everybody thinks that it's all happening, but it's and
it's funny too, because everybody, if you look at Louisiana's a big L, everybody thinks New Orleans is down at the bottom of the L. It's not. Right. Because the river goes, all the way up there. It's up there. It's kind of in the.
No, I lived down at the bottom part when I grew up there. Yeah, there's New Orleans is not down there at the very bottom.
And for me, the attraction of places like New Orleans, and I mean this in a good way, is the city is full of weirdos. And if you're a writer or a creative person, and you think, my God, I got a whole city full of weirdos that are interested in like 1,000 different things. That's gold.
I mean, even if with the NCIS New Orleans show, y'all may have watched it or whatever, it makes it look like New Orleans is this big monster place, but it's only the parts where you see all the really interestingly. I mean, it's got all of the flavor everywhere with all of the architecture and stuff. But I mean, as far as the nitty gritty part where you think all of the vampires are and stuff is just in a small little area. It's not. Yeah. It's
Well, so I absolutely agree, and that's one of the reasons that I like it as well, because there's so many weird characters down there, and and
the food is really good.
My opinion is writers should do this. Writers need to. Sometimes you're like, I'm going to write this, and I want everybody to enjoy it and love it. But sometimes I just write for me, right? So there's this page right here. This from Cat and Mouse #1, right? Not a single soul ever said anything to me about this. This is a character and a direct quote from the book Confederacy of Dunces, which is set in New Orleans, and the guy who wrote it won a Pulitzer Prize posthumously, right? He wrote it. Yeah. No one would buy it. He committed suicide, and then his mom sold it, right? And then it won a Pulitzer Prize. Fantastic book, but the dude is friggin' weird, right? The character is weird, and so I'm like, I want something in there that's that little touch of New Orleans that you can't get anywhere else. And so this character right here is from Confederacy of Dunces, which is from New Orleans, right? And so the quote there, that's why it doesn't make any, if you read it, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it's a quote from the book. So I think all writers are supposed to do things like that, right? Let me throw something in there that only really means anything, to me.
Of course. Well, it's also the thing that if you're doing your own book, you don't have to have an editor over you going, well, here at DC, we don't do that. It's like, well, in my book, we do.
Right.
I'm in charge of my book.
Yeah. And I think there's when someone because when BJ sets these up, they go out. Silverline's planning to stream on this date, and this is the subject. Someone actually posted, location.
That's right.
Yeah, which is right. And again, I think that there's things that you have to consider. Tommy mentioned voodoo, and that's one of the for me one of the biggest.
Voodoo, vampires.
I've got a book right here.
Right.
Voodoo, yeah. You see, I've got markers there.
Well, that's the thing too. If you set it in New Orleans, I bring certain expectations.
Yes.
That I'll be disappointed if you don't address it. I don't care how you address it necessarily, but if you are setting a story in New Orleans and you don't address A, B, and C, for me, why would you say? Then what's the point?
Right. It can
why do you even bring up the word, the city, if you're not going to do some of this stuff in it?
That's the same thing with Pete and Witchfinders. I have a certain view of Witchfinders in my head from everything I've read or every show I've ever watched or whatever. So there's certain things that I kind of want to see done.
Yeah.
And they better be in there.
And I don't necessarily want to see a creator imitate stuff from stuff I've seen, but at least address it in an interesting way.
Yeah.
And
Pete, you're in trouble now.
So Pete, get on it. Make me happy, Pete.
Make it up. Make it up, Zagato.
So Tom, this mysterious book that you're working on, where is it set?
Fictional city.
Okay, gotcha. There you go.
Because I wanted to, that aspect pays homage to a similar character that is also set in a fictional city, and nobody will ever get that but me and now Roland, because I told him.
I get it now.
Yeah.
I didn't, but I get it now.
And also because I want the freedom to screw around with the layout of the city. I want to make up stuff because I'm not going to have a 400 issue run, so I'm not going to have a lot of continuity errors.
Right.
And so, if I get 3 issues out of it or 6 issues or however long it runs for, and then I can screw around with the geography, and nobody, if any fan sort of writes in and says, this building wasn't here in issue 1 and now it's here in issue 4.
Well, they knocked it down.
That's right. Change happens in comics.
Well, what's the word? Gentrification, right?
Gentrification. That's right. The condos are being built there right now, even as we speak. We're solving the housing crisis.
Put in a park.
Yeah. I think the setting should have character, have personality, it should be important to the story. I think whatever you do, whether you go fictional, right, or whether you go realistic, I think if it's fictional, you've got to bring something to that city that gives it that like what we talked about, the reason Gotham and Metropolis are different, right? They're very different cities, right? But they're both fictional, so they bring something unique. All right, Pete's got a thought. I can tell by the look on his face.
I was thinking you're drawing futuristic stories, but like set in the real world. So how futuristic do you make it before it becomes just? So how do you draw New York set in the future, and it still be New York, but it has to be futuristic at the same time?
I mean, I have an idea that immediately comes to my mind, and that would be you go up with it. Right, because as a Southerner, right, to me, New York City is tall, right? It's a tall city, and so I think if you're going futuristic with it, you continue to go up with it, right? You just get taller and taller and taller.
So like Coruscant and
or
Mega City, right, in Star Wars, or
or you look at some of the weird
building up.
I would look at some of the weird architecture in Dubai.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some of the Asian cities, and just sort of add on to that, because I look at
just add a lot of neon to everything. Is that what you're talking?
Yeah, neon. Yeah,
because like the futuristic Los Angeles in Blade Runner. I mean, it still looks like somebody took Los Angeles and then added 20 years to it and grubbied it up, and so
it's flat.
It's flatter, yeah, but it's also darker and mistier and smokier and more neon, and some of that is because they want to hide the budget and keep the shot sort of tight so they don't have to spend too much money. But something like New York, I would do what Roland did. I would go up and then I would go weird.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go like super weird, just a little bit weird.
It look like the Jetsons. You just put those little domes on top of everything.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
I mean they're way up there. He's his garage is way up there for his flying car. He just parked the flying car in the garage.
What about like Ready Player One or whatever that show was, where they just kept building those buildings on top of buildings and buildings?
Yeah.
Right. Because that's throughout history. That's sort of what they did. Is they just built on top of the ruins of something.
Yeah.
And so
I think Ready Player One, they were all like shipping containers, weren't they?
Yeah, sure was.
Yeah.
Have
you guys heard of that city that Saudi Arabia's building, that big long wall?
Oh yes. Now it was meant to be very long, wasn't it? But now
Yes.
it's not going to be that long.
Right.
I haven't heard that it was shortened, but
it's been shortened dramatically. Yes.
Is it really?
Yes.
So what is it? It's not like a big roundish area. It's just a big long strip.
It's just one great big long wall.
Yeah.
And
it's meant
they
to be
were
really, really long.
Yes.
I can't remember how long, but very
like a
very
train
long.
system that would just run back and forth. That you just get
like
off
all the way across the entire country or something like that. And it was
like of course Mega City One was a straight line.
Yeah. And it was going to have that tram that just went, all the way back and forth. And supposedly the idea was you could get to any place in the city relatively quick. But it was going to have like one layer was going to be like retail and then homes.
So it's up but long.
Sounds horrible.
Yes. Yeah.
It does sound terrible.
It does. Yeah. I can't remember what the name of that thing, what they called it, but you remember, Pete?
People really do look at science fiction and find the worst parts of science fiction and think we can build that.
Right.
Why? Why?
The thing about science fiction isn't the building. It's the idea. It's it's how people live. It's not necessarily the architecture.
It was called The Line.
Yeah, how clever!
Of course, it was
The Line. Yeah.
Come on, that sounds like a Florida condominium development.
It was
supposed to be 13. The wiki tells me it's 13 miles long.
It's not.
How wide?
Dramatic to a mile.
6 feet.
It's 13 miles wide, but like one house deep. That's all it is.
It's like living on a really long boat.
Oh boy. What about those people that live on the boats? That's
500 meters tall is what it's supposed to be.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry. 500 meters above sea level, 200 meters wide. So what you're looking at it's two football fields wide. Isn't that about right?
We used to just call these forts.
Well, I kind of wonder where the province is. Are they building a wall to keep the Iraqis out? What?
Oh, it's
what
on the
is
border.
It?
Is that where they're building this thing? Oh boy!
It's like stupid people with too much money. We should build a city in a line. That hasn't been done before. I'm tired of going up. I'm tired of development homes in a cul-de-sac. Let's just go out in a straight line.
They didn't really even. They just found a railroad track that was already there. Let's just build a bunch of houses down the railroad track.
Right. Although I would live on a boat.
Yeah, we've been watching a bunch of videos because we're going to go on a cruise here, and there's people that actually cruise all year long. You have to. You can't do it.
People live on the boat.
You can do it for 10 or 11 months out of the year. You have to have 2 months on the ground on the dirt somewhere to legally say that you live someplace or whatever.
Really?
They were showing the money that they spend, and it's not any more expensive than having a house someplace.
Yeah. And they feed you.
Yes,
true.
That's not a smart city,
isn't it? It's a prison.
It does look like a futuristic prison. It looks like where Judge Dredd sends people.
Yeah.
If you don't watch yourself, I'm sending you.
But if it was in a big round circle, that would be kind of cool. and you don't have to worry about the train going back and forth. You just get on it, and it just keeps going in a circle, and you just get off wherever you need to get off.
Wherever you want.
This picture here shows the walls are completely mirrored. It's like, I don't know. I'm not really sure why. Why do you need to reflect the sand?
Right. Well, because you don't want the heat to get in, so you reflect the heat away. Because it's like, what is it? It's like 140 degrees there.
It's hot. Oh wait a minute. Here may be. This is a cutaway of it. Open. I just want to open the picture.
Welcome to the Silverline Architecture Hour.
Yeah. Well, architecture, place. There's a cutaway of it.
Oh, no.
It's just awful. Why would you live in that?
Yeah.
Maybe if the whole thing was just my house.
Look at all the space they've got. Look at all the space they've got, and they decided to cram themselves into that a little bit.
No, it's
well, there's more green there than there is out here.
What is that?
I'm gonna guess that's all plastic.
Look at the boat sitting out there all by itself.
Plastic. Yeah, I kind of wonder about these boats. I'm not sure where. I guess this could be. That's the Saudi Arabia, where they got all this water. Yeah, I don't know.
I couldn't live there. I couldn't live there or shop there.
Yeah, I would have a hard time living there. But it wouldn't take you very long to get places.
No, because the train's right there. Train goes through my living room, apparently.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Have we exhausted place?
I guess so.
Any other thoughts?
Well, you're talking about character. I mean, the fact is, you got to know where your characters exist, because then it's like, what's Peter Parker without the Daily Bugle, or Clark Kent without the Daily Planet? You can line it with the supporting characters. I mean, like I said, you got to differentiate. Where where do you set your characters at?
Yeah,
and I think a lot of that too is what are the social customs of the time and the place where your setting is.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the people in Mike's towns are going to act a lot different than the people in Peter's towns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're going to carry, Peter's characters are obviously going to have attitudes from that time period that may not carry over into the 1,000 years later of Mike's stories.
Yeah.
And so I think you've got to be, how can those different things impact my character?
Exactly. How they influence the story.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think once you start doing some research, you can find out that, there are some stories here that I didn't think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right there, Mike. Is that how does it influence the story? Is, a coal mining, I would have said a coal mining town, but you said camp.
Well, that's what it was called originally, and of course, it kind of stuck as a way of people when they're thinking nostalgically. That's what they call them, coal cans. But a lot of towns and cities became from that little area that became very big areas.
Yeah, and of course, I know now there's a. Well, I say now, I haven't heard it in several years, but there was a kind of a movement in Kentucky about what was it called? When they topped the hills?
You're talking about strip mines. You're talking about when we cleared. Basically,
just
the
taking
idea
the tops off of them or something.
Oh well, that was pretty much the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and of course, then the movement kind of reversed. How do we, repopulate that with trees and all the coal mines had to make arrangements of once you were done strip mine, you were supposed to replant and repopulate that particular area with trees and anything that grass and whatever. But that time's kind of past too.
Yeah. I don't remember. I'm trying to remember because I went to my graduate school up in Louisville, Kentucky, and so that I think that's kind of where being up there, I heard some of that about. It had a term, I forget what it was called, topping or.
I'd say it's had different. Strip mining is all I heard because I lived there.
Yeah,
and like I said, I knew what it was because it was a way of the idea of drawing it from the top, whereas. Like my grandfather's era, it was down in the mine, down at the bottom of the mountain. And so, during the 70s and 80s, where a lot of the coal companies pulled out of Kentucky, the ones that remained started doing topping. They went to the tops, and a lot of that stripping the trees, stripping the rock, and trying to get down into those coal beds. It makes it a strip mine for me.
Well, I think we all know that mountains are too pointy anyway. It's dangerous.
Yeah, there was a few that got cut down pretty good. I mean, you had your opposing forces quite a bit. So I mean, there were some situations, but that's coal mining just in general. The history, is nice and bloody any way you look at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, you don't need as many people if you're just going to cut the top off.
You don't have to drive all the way around.
Just
you
a
can
little
just
top, please.
Just go over the top.
Yeah.
You don't need to send 1,000 guys down to the bottom of the earth to dig.
You'd be surprised how many they actually needed.
I would. You know what? Could you do that? I could never go in a hole in the ground like that.
No.
I've been in old ones. I've never been in active ones. Yeah, like I said, I grew up. Like I said, my grandfather basically lived a mile or two from where he worked, and they were still active. I mean, not active, but they were open mine shafts where, he would only allow us to go so far.
Yeah,
he knew they were dangerous. So, because what they were.
But you were urban exploring.
We got a little touch of it. It's I can't. To this day, I still can't believe he was able to do that. I mean, that going where I could still see light still scared me to death. I can't imagine he went where there was no light other than the lamp on top of his head.
Yeah,
right.
And
not me.
But that's what he had to do to make a living, and so he was very fearless when it came to that. But when you actually see the remnants of this, because again, growing up in the 80s, the skeletons were still there. The mine shafts, the mine carts, the structures of the coal temples. It really impacted me as far as the character of the area. Yeah. Because it was such a big thing to that city. It was so intrinsic to it. And then you see the skeletons, and not only just in the coal situation, but this thriving city that when the coal company moved out, what was left?
Yeah.
Because everybody basically, once coal dried up in Kentucky, my grandfather used to kid about there were more Kentuckians in Michigan than there were natives because everybody in Kentucky who dug coal went up to make cars.
Yep, with factories.
And so, like I said, the character of this town, you saw so many, it's like ghost town. It was really my version of a ghost town of seeing all these former thriving situations that were just left. And that's it. That's the reason I said one of my cities, because it really affected me growing up. It was such a place where I came from.
See, I would rather get a gun and a flashlight and go in the cities of New York and hunt for alligators before I would go into a coal mine.
I'm telling you,
because I've seen pictures of the guys all jammed in the elevator waiting to go down, and where it's just sort of it's dark or there's a naked light bulb or whatever hanging. That's like no. That's for me. That's like instant death.
Yeah.
I could never do it.
No, I couldn't either. I think it's not that the fact that it's not the dark that scares me. It's the fact that I'm
getting out of the dark.
Right. Yeah. It's like going way down there and I can't. What am I going to do?
You have no control. I went to, there's a site in Turkey called Urenkuyu, which is an underground city. And it's where the town would sort of run and hide when the invaders would come in, and they had this network of tunnels underground, and it goes down like 8 or 10 stories or whatever. And they'll let you go like 4 stories deep into the tunnels. And I went down there, and it gets small.
Yeah.
And you're sort of, you don't really stand up straight. You sort of hunch over, and they don't have the safety protocols there like you do in Disneyland or Universal Studios or whatever. It's just, it's stairs. There's a rope handrail and there's some light bulbs, and you're down there, 40, 50 feet below the surface of the earth. And you're thinking anything goes wrong.
I sure hope somebody doesn't unplug that.
This is an active earthquake area. They have earthquakes all the time, and this is just dirt. Anything goes wrong, no one really knows I'm down here. I paid my $20 or whatever. Say goodbye.
They laughed at you. They go.
I can't go underground. There's a lot of caves here that are tourist traps. And I wouldn't dare, because all the stories he used to tell me about cave-ins while they were working. And like I said, he lost the tip of his ring finger. And that's the worst he ever did. But the stories he told me about what happened to other miners, I was dumbfounded. Because before OSHA, before, all this stuff, I mean, and like I said, without the safety nets and whatever that were there, just the cave-ins, how many dozens of men would get killed weekly because of cave-ins. It's just, you won't catch me underground.
Grandpa Belcher says, "Come here, young Mike. Let me tell you about, sit here on my lap. Let me tell you about the time I lost my finger."
Exactly.
Yeah, I would rather.
My grandfather said, "Come here, Roland, pull my finger."
That's why I would rather fight witches in the era of Peter stories, because it's all out in the open. It's just there's just mud and swords and magic spells or whatever. I think I would do better than if I dug coal.
Can you please start over? I just got here.
Rewind.
You can follow us on the YouTubes.
That's right, Agent. So place is important. Pete, what did final question here, since we're still funding here Silverline Team Up number 2. When you got the scripts for Silverline Team Up, is there anything that ran through your head? It's like, okay, this is set in New Orleans. What do I need? What do I got to do? What do I need to be thinking about?
Yeah, because I don't know anything about New Orleans. So this is where Google Images, which is now your best friend. You get the same picture. I've said it before. You get the same picture over and over again in Google Images. You just get Bourbon Street. That's it.
With all the strip joints, that's what you get.
You just get that, and you get the flowers on the. So other than that, it's quite difficult to get lots of pictures. I guess it's not a big place.
No, it's not. It's not a huge place. No. Now I tried to include.
There are TV shows that are set in New Orleans, but I don't know how accurate they are.
Yeah.
The graves are quite interesting. So you can't bury things. They're quite interesting. Or the mausoleums.
Now you followed the links that I sent you, right? In the script.
I do usually, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know, because I think one of them was one of the mausoleums, wasn't it? The cemeteries, I think.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It was in Cat and Mouse. I know that.
Okay. Yeah.
And you can't reference everything for every single panel, because you're just going to be there forever. So you can do it once.
Yeah.
And then you've established where you are, and then you can make it.
Plus, you don't want to have to draw, even if they are on Bourbon Street, you don't want to have to draw those little wrought iron rails.
No.
It's
enough to do it everywhere. Enough to do it a few times. Every time you change location, you can reestablish and then make it up.
Do what John Byrne does. Draw it once and then just
post at it.
Silhouette in the background.
That's right.
Man, wrought iron balconies just everywhere is what you got to draw.
Yeah. I do think it's important to establish, though. One of the things that, of course, establishing in place are kind of two different things. But I think we touched on this. I can't remember if I went off on my students about it or if we talked about this last week. One of the things that I see a lot in independent comics is the inability to establish. You open it up and they're just doing stuff. And you're like, okay, where am I? When's this taking place? And then they just start saying, okay, yeah, we've got to go beat the bad guy. And then they take off and you're like, where you going? Oh, wait, there you are. I don't know where you went. Did it take you a long time to get there? Were you whatever you were doing running for 3 days, or did it take you 3? I don't know. And it seems like to me, a lot of independent writers are afraid to use a caption that just simply says the next day.
Yeah.
It's like, why are they so afraid of that? I don't get it. I don't understand it.
Well, I think because the idea I always think is you need to help. Sometimes you need to help the reader.
Yes.
And not make your story such a mystery. It's not like, oh, cool, I'm going to keep the reader guessing. And I think there's a fine line between keeping the reader guessing and pushing the reader away.
Well, yeah, and I think so many. I think I think there's this overriding mentality, and I hear it in my students a lot. There's an overriding mentality. It's like, well, I'm not going to spoon feed the reader. I'm like, telling them where they are is not spoon feeding them. It's giving them information that they need. Well, they can figure it out by looking. Well, how? If they're like me growing up, I never left the state of Mississippi. I didn't know, I only know New York City because Spider-Man said New York City.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I've never been there. And
also, Stan Lee would always write some sort of long caption in the beginning of page 1, which would tell you this is, New York City. Even the stupid old TV show Dragnet, it would always go, this is the city, Los Angeles, California. And there'd be a shot of Los Angeles. I work here, I carry a badge. It's like, there's everything you need to know.
TV shows are so much better about establishing, I think. Of course, I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but the ones that I watch is like they're so much better at establishing than independent comic books are.
Yeah.
Well, I happen to watch a lot of television, and I can tell you that you are correct.
Okay.
TV does a very good job of establishing place.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Agent Cub says, speaking of place, when is Silverline coming to Phoenix Fan Fusion? I can tell you, Agent, that we would love to go. If you know someone in charge of Phoenix Fan Fusion, tell them to reach out to us. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of us that would love to attend if we could. So, and that goes for anyone listening. All of us at Silverline would love to come to your shows wherever they might be in the U.S. or the U.K. We've got folks scattered all about, so we would love to absolutely come to your shows and talk about comics and promote our comics and that kind of thing. So do not be shy. Do not hesitate to reach out to us. Any final thoughts, guys?
Well, speaking of places, I will be at the San Diego Comic-Con in July, and I will also be at the New York City Comic-Con in October.
Sweet. Wow.
I'll be in 2 places.
Nice. Remember, you're supposed to what is it? The San Diego. You're supposed to reach out to somebody. Popped on here. Wanted to collaborate.
I'll tell you what. I've already forgotten. So it's up to them.
I've forgotten the name. I'd have to look. It'd take me a minute, but I could probably pick it up. Okay. So, anybody else?
When's your next show, Roland?
Well, I'm going to be at a symphony this Saturday, which is in Orlando, and then on Sunday, then the very next day, I will be in Leesburg. Is a burger Ville, Tommy? Leesville. I think Leesville, Florida, at the Collecticon there. It's a mall show. I'll be there. Tommy might not be there.
Something.
Probably not. Okay, so Tommy probably won't be there. Haley will be there. There's a good possibility that Jose might be coming up. So
get Jose to take my spot.
Yeah, that's what I reached out to him and asked him what he thought about you making the drive. So
I've got family coming in that just let me know all of a sudden they're coming, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
you're basically having a living room convention.
That's right.
So that's this weekend. So on Tuesday, that the crew from that Silverline show on Tuesday, what are slice of life comics? The team discusses how you can create a comic without action or genre. Sounds like a boring comic to me, but that's just me. It'll be
if you're not
interesting.
Punching somebody in the face, I'm sort of out.
Yeah, what's the point, right? So tune in here what those guys have to say about that. Wednesday, there's nothing on here for Wednesday, so they're going to be a Wednesday Wham. I just don't know what they're going to be talking about. And next week, we're going to have a guest with us. We're going to have Andy Smith, who is a comic creator. He's worked for who was that? Y'all know him?
It's cool.
Yeah.
Yep. He's worked for a multitude of comic companies, including Marvel, DC, Image, and
everybody.
He has also done commercial work for the Chicago Bears, the Idaho Potato Company, and Disney. So he is going to be on here with us next week. We'll talk to him about his career and things that he's doing today. We might even ask him about place.
There you go.
And if he's worked a lot for Disney, he's probably half a lawyer by now.
Half a lawyer.
We do got to let people know that the diamond stuff should be shipping out next week.
Next week.
The Trumps 3.
Is it?
Well, I've got it queued up to go.
Okay, then.
So you should Wednesday or Friday of next week. You should have all those to start shipping out. So they'll be showing from the shops.
That's exciting. Then I hadn't heard from my printer that it was that close to being printed. So, so that is exciting. So yeah. So if you ordered Trumps 3 from your local shop, you should be looking for that fairly soon, because I've just found out that it'll be shipping out to Diamond pretty soon. So keep that in mind. Also in the catalog right now is K-List number 3. So you guys get over there and make sure that you order your copy of K-List number 3. And don't forget,
you and I going to be on somebody else's show tomorrow.
Oh man, I've got hold on, I'll tell you. I hid that calendar. I have got this week. I didn't even put it on our calendar yet. Tommy and I are going to be on 8 p.m. Are going to be on with RJ on Critical Blast, and then
Eastern, right? So I have time to get. Okay, so I don't have to rush home from work. Okay, got it.
On Tuesday night at 7 p.m., I'm going to be on with Andrew Mecca Davis. On Wednesday night at 8 p.m., I'm going to be joining Art Tiber on his stream, and we're going to be pimping Silverline Team Up. Cool. And then on Friday night at 10:30, I think Pete and I are slated to talk to the Thunder Geeks. So
that was pretty fun. Roberta and I did last week. I hope we didn't embarrass anybody. We did a good job.
And then 7:30 next week, just before I come on here, I'm going to be talking with Aaron Lepresti on his stream. Cool. So, yeah. So I'm trying to get us on as many streams as possible to promote it.
Because we got about a week and a half, 2 weeks more.
We got I
keep saying Kickstarter. I got to quit saying that, of the crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding. We have 14 days to go. We got 2 weeks.
Refresh it. Let's see if we got anybody while we were.
All right.
Today.
I'm refreshing. Indeed, we did. Look at that.
Look at that.
Thank you, whoever that was.
We're at 110% now. We were at 108. We're at 110%. So
yeah, so we'll be close to the first stretch goal.
And we have decided, y'all, we got Andy next week, but then the week following that, we're going to do, as you can see, it ends on Sunday, June the 2nd at 8:45. So we'll do a closeout stream. Pete, you're going to be at least able to join us in another 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We'll do a closeout stream, and maybe what are the possibilities? I might could talk you guys into drawing something. All you who have the ability to draw something that we could add to the campaign. Draw it live.
Draw something. Buy it now. Buy it now. Buy it now.
Just plan to draw something. It's a 30-minute drawing. Just plan that. Don't plan a 2-hour long drawing and then have I got to come back and finish it. Just plan a 30-minute drawing.
Whatever you can draw in 30 minutes, then you're done. That's what they're gonna buy.
Whatever you can draw in 30 minutes. I'm going to ask all of you, Mike, and those of you who can draw, Mike and Pete and Tommy. Tom, you did something too. I would love to get a cartoon from Tom. That would be fantastic.
I'll draw a cartoon, but it won't look like a cat or a mouse.
I would love that. That would be great.
And so
then what we'll do is it'll be something physical, so that we can we'll figure out how we'll have the week or 2 weeks to think about it. We'll figure out how we'll work that into the campaign somehow, so you can see it drawn live, and then we'll put it on with the campaign.
Right. Speaking of Aaron Lepresti, by the way,
tell
him I bought one of his originals.
Oh,
nice.
Wow.
So
Dang.
Where'd you find that?
I bought it from Aaron's house.
Okay.
He doesn't know. You didn't buy it. You just walked out with it. How about that?
You know, it's funny. He leaves his door open. You can just go in and take whatever. No, he drew it on one of his.
Shelly probably said, "Yeah, he doesn't need that.
He doesn't need that." He drew it for one of his live streams, and then he posted it afterwards. And I got in before somebody else said they wanted it. I said, "You know what? I want it." Because I don't necessarily care about superhero comic book art, but I do care about the goofy stuff.
Yeah.
So
nice.
I'm in.
So you guys heard that here. We're gonna get something goofy from Tom in 2 weeks. So
that's right. I'm gonna have to practice now.
Practice.
Remember,
you can
30 minutes.
It out really lightly.
Something you can do in 30 minutes.
30 minutes. I'm more of a cartoony person. I can do it in 10 seconds.
You can. So are you saying you're going to do multiples?
If it's going to help the cause, I'll do whatever it takes.
All right. Excellent. Fantastic. All right, guys. Anything else before we call it a night here?
Gonna go get me some dinner.
All right.
Talking about New Orleans food.
Remember to make mine Silverline. Good night, everyone.
Hey, I'm G-Rod. Make mine Silverline. You heard me.